So welcome back, everyone. Thank you very much. And we like to introduce a new segment, one that I'm actually really excited about. We have Don Meredith being back, Senator Don Meredith, as well as Senator Dyck with us today. And instead of myself introducing Senator Dyck, I would really like her to have you introduce herself.
Thank you. My name is Senator Lilian Dyck. I'm from Saskatchewan. I'm a member of the Gordon First Nation. I'm also half Chinese, tiny little bit of Scottish in there. In my previous life, I was a neurochemist at the University of Saskatchewan for most of my life, and then in 2005, I became a senator.
So you would say you're all kind of mixed up there?
Yes.
Chemist mixed up?
Yes, right.
I just throw that in. Fantastic. Well, Senator, thank you so much for coming today. We've this is an initiative that I've been working on for the last several years. Look at a Pan-Canada National Youth Forum, talk about the issues that are impacting our young people across this country, not only our Aboriginal youth, our visible minority youth, youth in general, whether you're in North Preston, Nova Scotia, or you're in Surrey, BC, or whether you're right downtown Ottawa, which we're shooting from today. I think it's important that we talk about the issues that are important to young people. How we as legislators are making a difference. I've highlighted this issue. You know my work dealing with the GTA Faith Alliance for the last number of years, and how these issues are very important to me and passionate about, advancing our youth, engaging them, encouraging them, and empowering them. What would you say to our youth today in terms of your experience, dealing with youth issues and the challenges that young people face? What would you say to our young people that are watching us today?
Well, youth issues are critically important for the Aboriginal population, as you probably know.
Right. Because
there's such a large proportion that are under 25 and under. Half of the population is of that age. And I think the message, certainly the message I heard this morning too with our youth panel at breakfast, was to be proud of who you are, to have the self-pride, the self-confidence, and to take ownership of your culture and your language. And that will make you very strong. And that no matter what comes your way, you'll be able to deal with it.
We hear of situations taking place on First Nations, and you're First Nations, you live in Saskatchewan, you've dealt with First Nation leaders. What's causing some of these issues on these reserves and so forth with respect to homelessness, poverty, suicides that are taking place? Can you elaborate for me? Because these are issues that impact on our young people.
Well, it's pretty hard to answer that question. It's a very complex question. Poverty certainly has a big part of it, and it's really our history of Canada, right? We have a colonial system of government that still exists. The First Nation people were put on reserves, and those reserves are underfunded, and everybody in Canada now knows about the residential schools, and the policy was to kill the Indian and the child. And those children were actually deliberately starved. And I could make this statement where I think that in a sense we're still continuing that. It's not so blatant, but we are underfunding. And so we have a system of people that have lived separately who've never really been equal to the rest of Canada. So it's basically, I don't know what to say. It's basically a very bad leftover from our colonial history.
How do we move forward? Justin, you've experienced, your First Nations mixed, culture. How do these young people find hope in moving forward and concur with what the Senator has just said?
I appreciate you asking me that, because my personal experience to move forward is finding my culture. And the more that I learn about my heritage and understanding my history, it gives me that sense of pride. And that sense of pride is so important because it's who I am. That's what makes up my identity. And that's what gives me the inspiration and motivation to move forward, to be a positive role model. Because in our society, whether we think it's there or not, we have a social responsibility because the future generations are looking up to us. Yeah. And so for me to understand that my culture, my First Nations heritage, kind of opened my eyes to this human being, what it means to be a human. And that's kind of the way that we started walking in life. And so I feel as though having a sister, working at Wabano, working with youth constantly, I stopped drinking. I don't drink anything, no drugs, right? And that's simply because I know these youth are looking up to me, and I want to guide them to help find themselves, because it's not really up to me, it's up to them, and I just want to open the doors for them, and to be able to introduce them to their cultural heritage and to their identity is definitely what gives them that pride. So I think that finding yourself is so important and crucial to be a young person in order to achieve and move forward in this world.
Fantastic. Senator, talk to us a little bit about mentorship. What do you think in terms of just, you're growing up, as you know, when you were growing up, you know, who was there for you? Because we find that today a lot of young people just don't have that proper role model in their lives. And for me, as someone growing up in a rough neighborhood of Jane and Finch in the Greater Toronto area, coming into this country in 1976, scene filled with drugs and gangs and violence, I took the path of education, and again, my faith drove me. What was the difference, or what made a difference in your life growing up? In terms of mentorship and so forth, and what would you say to young people today?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't really have a lot of mentors when I was growing up. You know, we had a small family. My mother passed away when I was quite young. We moved around a lot. We moved around a lot. But really, the saving grace actually was high school and the teachers. And there was one teacher in particular who took an interest mostly in my brother, but also in myself. And he encouraged us to go to university, so education was the kind of saving grace. And I was very fortunate that I was blessed with what I call native intelligence, so that I was always a straight A student, so I was very lucky that way. So the path of education took me up a certain extent, but then I had to then also reclaim my culture and reclaim who I was. Right. Because I was brought up,
identity was very important.
That's
to you
right,
well.
And even with my dad being Chinese, he, you know, like we were ashamed of being Indian, we were less ashamed of being Chinese, and so we tried to blend. Well, we don't blend, right?
Right. Fantastic. Well, no, I think it's important. I mean, you talk about a teacher being instrumental in your life, a teacher as well. I remember Miss Corey being in that instrument, and I think, Justin, you can remember as well, that particular individual who, you know, said, Justin, listen, here's a path that you're going down. Here's a path that you should be going on. But here I am to help you and support you. And I think that that's a message I'd like to leave with our young people today, that, listen, you need to find somebody who's a constant in your life. It's not the drug dealer. It's not the, you know, the pimp. It's that individual that's going to steer you in the right direction. So whether it be a clergy, would be a police officer, a health practitioner, an educator, find that individual, I believe, and latch to them and gain from their experiences so that you can be a better contributor in society.
Right, or a senator.
Absolutely, or both two senators.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, hail from the hills of St. Anne's, Jamaica. You're from Saskatchewan with some adversities. But I think the challenge here, and Senator, you concur with this or not, is that there are opportunities in this country, and I think it's important that young people reach out and seize that. Is that would be a correct assessment?
Yes. Well, I think you're right. Is find people in your life that offer you positive ways, and latch onto that. And you never know where it's going to lead you, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Senator Dyck, for dropping in today to our national
One
youth
more
forum
sip and I'll
across
be on the
Canada.
way.
Absolutely. And Justin, thank you again for hosting today.
Thank you very much for rejoining us.
Great.
Thank you.